Now we're going to talk about an incredibly useful editing mechanic known as nesting. Nesting is when you want to take one sequence, whether it's the entire sequence or just a portion of it, and more or less embed it into another sequence. So what I want to do here is take sequence number 7 called nesting image wall, which is just a wall of images right now, and I want to take this and embed it inside of sequence 7a called nesting montage, which is just a montage of some drone footage I took in Scotland. So how do I do this? How do I take sequence 7 and embed or nest it into 7a? Well, it's really quite easy if you just think of sequence number 7 like a video clip for a second. Well, what would we normally do if this were a video clip? We would probably double click it to load it up in the source monitor. Problem is, when you do that, it doesn't load into the source monitor, it loads into the timeline panel because it's a sequence. But you can actually force a sequence to open up and act like a video clip in the source monitor by right-clicking and choosing Open in Source Monitor. So I do that, and suddenly this sequence shows up and acts and plays back like a solid video clip. Well, from here, what would you do? You would probably set some in and out points if you needed them, or if you don't need in and out points, you can just kind of skip that process. And now I would go to the 7a sequence and merely insert this into the beginning of the sequence. Now I can do that by using the insert button or the comma key or dragging and dropping. I'll just drag and drop here and hold down Command on Mac or Control on Windows to perform the insert. And voila, this is now a nested sequence. It looks and acts like one solid clip. Now, I could have done this a different way. Let me Option delete this. If I knew I didn't want any in and out points, if I didn't have a need for them, I could skip the source monitor entirely and just drag literally straight from the project panel into my timeline, hold down the insert key, Command or Control, and let go. So just a little shortcut there if you don't need to set in and out points. Now the question becomes, well, what if you need to make an adjustment? What if I've suddenly decided that I really want to swap these two top images with one another? This now looks like a flattened video clip. Can I still make changes? And yes, you can. You just need to go back to the original sequence. There's a live link between what looks like this flattened clip and sequence number 7. I can get there by simply double clicking on it, and it literally just takes me to the original sequence. So real quick to swap these two, I will select the top one, jump to Effect Controls, and figure out what position value changes I need. In this case, to make this guy move over to the right quadrant, I just need to type in 1440. That's the value here in a 1920 by 1080 sequence. And then this one right below, which is now underneath this clip, I need to move this guy to the left, and the value I want in this case is going to be 480. So I've now swapped the two. Well, guess what? When I go back to where it's been nested, that's sequence 7a, boom, it's instantly updated there too. So there's a live link between what we see here and the original sequence. Now, I am actually going to remove this one more time, so I'm going to do an Alt-Delete to do a ripple delete, because I want to show you one last little caveat or scenario related to nesting here, and it involves this button right here in your timeline. Insert and overwrite sequences as nests or individual clips. Now this button can throw you off a little bit if you're not sure exactly how it works or if you've accidentally clicked it. So let's say I click on this. What different behavior are we going to experience now if I were to try to nest sequence 7 into 7a? Let's say I go back to my source monitor and I just want to perform a nest just like before. So I'll do the exact same thing. I'm going to click and drag and hold down Command or Control and let go. And look, something very different happened this time. Instead of getting what looked like a flattened nested clip, I now see actually all the original clips here going up through 4 video tracks. This isn't really nesting. They refer to it as nesting, but it's not the same. It's more like a copy and paste function. There is no live link anymore between the stack of clips and the original sequence that it came from. So for example, if I did something fairly drastic, like I went back to the original sequence, and let's just say to see something very obvious very quick, I toggle the track output on one of the clips. Well, when I go back to where this has supposedly been nested as individual clips, I see the clip comes back to life. So there's no live link between the two anymore if this has been toggled. Most of the time, you probably want this lit up in blue. That is the default setting. So that's a look about how you can take one sequence and nest it into another in Premiere Pro.